Hello friends and followers. Well, here again is the HRO 500 by National Company, built in 1965. This is a serial number 75 unit, so it's one of the first ones off the production line. At any rate, so I wanted to describe again the synthesizer activities I've learned so far on this unit. So to really debug this thing, what I found is this burst generator or spectrum generator that generates harmonics every 500 kcs, this has to be putting out enough power to make a difference. And why wasn't this one doing well? I'm not sure. At any rate, I took all the transistors out and clean the leads using a pair of needle nose and just spinning the leads through the needle nose to scrub off stuff. I found this thing wouldn't start dependably. It would sometimes start with a very low sine wave. Other times it would start with a good sine wave. Well, this doesn't put out sine waves, but when you mix this with the HF oscillator, you can see 4.75 in these cans. So that's how I measure this thing. So at any rate, I wasn't seeing that. And so to really measure that, this thing will do sweeps to try and sync itself. It'll sweep the HF oscillator through a range of frequencies, and you want to pull out that sweep transistor to align this thing. So that sweep transistor is the one missing down here, which is Q311. You want to pull out Q311, and that will stabilize your HF oscillator. And then you can really see where you stand. So you want to make sure this little twirly wheel here, this little switch, basically is a band filter for each of the 5 bands. And you want to make sure this is in the right band before you get too busy with this. And my string broke, so I just do it manually. And that's fine for debugging it. Okay, and what else seemed critical was if this 500 kc crystal is off a bit in frequency, this thing will put out a bunch of spurs that don't make sense. And so when you're looking at the 4.75 kcs and cranking this through, you'll see a bunch of junk that doesn't line up with 4.75 kilocycles. So this has to be tweaked a bit to make that clean. And that's about all I've learned with this thing, really. This little capacitor here controls the harmonic generation, which harmonics are favored and resonant. This is tracked to the HF oscillator down here with that little twirly wheel down there, which is turning this capacitor, which is in series. This is in series with the varactor diode. So at any rate, knowing all that, this then goes into a mixer. The mixer transistor is right here, and on my unit, this mixer transistor was bad. So I trashed that, and I borrowed the mixer transistor from the HF oscillator because that's the same transistor. If you look at the mixer Q303, Q306, it's one of these or one of these. It's this one here. So I stuck a silicon, I think a PNP in there. Yeah. I just put a PNP in there for the HF oscillator, and it seemed to tolerate that. So I put a silicon PNP in there into 303, and it tolerated that, and it seems like the output's fine, and it seems steady. So that's what I did, and I put this transistor here into the mixer. Why? Because the mixer has to have a certain output. The mixer, when you get down here to the comparator, you have 2 signals that had better be of equal amplitude from the 4.75 reference, and all this stuff here had better be the same amplitude. So let's go through that. So the way I've been measuring this thing is I got a frequency counter here, and I'm just measuring what's coming down the line here. Do I have 4.75 on a peak here? And so I have the scope and that signal, what is this thing called? A frequency counter and a scope on the same connection on this last can And I'm pretty sure that's resonating out through this can. So here we go. So if you look at that, I can turn the synthesizer and you'll see it run through its bands here. And this will drop down to 0 like it should. So drops to 0. It's not hitting anything. So the high frequency oscillator is not coming into agreement with the highest burst harmonic from this guy. Something about 19 harmonics removed, I heard from the manual. So if we look at 12 here, say, and let's crank up some gain on this scope here. Okay, so that's at 12. You'll see the scope has resonance, it has a signal. On 4.75, if we go to 11.5, you'll see the same thing. So that's how it should work. And we haven't gotten to the comparator part yet, but at least this is now working reasonably. All right, so you want to get to that point, and what can stop you? The band switch can be faulty, and that can stop you. This switch can be in the wrong position. A component here could be bad. This is very delicate here. I did find a bad resistor right here, 100 ohms. It was like 330 ohms. I'm not sure that fixed anything, but okay, here's the other key point. You want to measure the two signals that come into the comparator here. One signal is from the HF oscillator, and the other is from this guy here, the harmonic generator, or the spectrum generator. So this first wire here is for the HF oscillator. Been doing this for days, so it's all memorized. So the HF oscillator is rather puny here. What do we got here? HF oscillator is roughly 50 millivolt. So I have 0.2 volts coming off the HF oscillator. Is that reasonable? I suppose. So then coming off the other lead here, you really can't measure this one because it's a whole spectrum, but let's see. So spectrum analyzer, spectrum. It's not an analyzer, it's a spectrum generator. Okay, that's right here. The spectrum generator right there. And what do we got? This one puts out that funky, strange signal. Funky Comedina signal, but nope, I don't have any. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it puts out this funky monkey signal. And what's the amplitude on that? Okay, let's go down to. So this funky signal, I would say it's about 0.1. It's almost 2 microvolts, or 0.2 volts. So that's where you want to be with that, I suppose. All right, so then what's important is what comes out of this mixer. So we can take a look at the mixer here. Actually, we'll go right here with the mixer. And you see it has amplified signal, I would hope. Or maybe it hasn't. Are we resonant here? I should get a resonance thing. No, I don't have anything. Let's see. Let's go to AC coupling here. AC coupling, 5 volt scale, 2 volts, 1 volt. I should get something here bursting through. Yeah, there's something right there. All right, so I'm not getting much. When I see it do that, I wiggle the band switch because I think it's acting up. It's not acting up. So that's all I got there. Doesn't seem like a lot. So I'm getting about, how much? I can't think. Okay, so I'm getting about 0.2 volts there, peak to peak. Okay, that's out of the mixer. Now we go to the second IF here. So mixer, first IF, okay, right here. Let's check that one, and you should get a signal out of there. Yep. Amplified about 4 times. So now we're getting what? Okay, 0.2 volts. 0.2, maybe 0.3 volts out of there. All right, so you want to keep seeing progressive amplification. So now at this last stage here, let's take a look here. What do we got? And again, you got a buku signal there. So that's what you want to see. Now they're saying this thing needs to be like 4 volts or something, and it's like, my God. So there's a 5 volt, the 0.5 volt. Let's see how much we got here. That's 0.5 volts. Maybe we got 1 volt, about 2 volts there. It's not great, but we got 2 volts. So I think they want 4. I'm not sure I'm going to get 4 volts out of this thing. Replacing this mixer transistor helped. Anyway, at this point, you can tweak these cans for max. Once you tweak this guy for a max here, and you want to get this thing on 4.75 exactly. 4.75. So I'm measuring the frequency right here at the final can there. 4.75. I'm turning the synthesizer here to get it to 4.75. That gets us in the band pass of the cans and close to the reference oscillator. Okay, now at 4.75, I want to tune these guys for max. And I hadn't done this yet, so let's try that. Tune the mixer here for max. That was already pretty close. Mixer's good. Let's tune the first AF. This one's a real stinker because it's sticky. It's not going to do much, but it's good there. Second IF, tune that one up. Oh, look at that. So there's some improvement there. Okay, so that's probably as good as I can get out of these IFs. And that's given that this thing's putting out good power and the HF oscillator is putting out good power. I still think those could put out more, but anyway. I'm mucking with the first IF there. That's pretty good. Now, what do we have for signal here? Okay, there's 0.5 volts. Let's go down a bit. So I hate adding. Okay, 1 volt, 2 volts peak to peak. So at any rate, we're at 4.75. Now we can play games with seeing if it'll actually cancel, if it'll actually discover cancellation. So the book talks about, the manual talks about getting a beat note out of this thing, and I think right about here is where you want to connect for a beat note, because these two resistors go into the voltage. These go into a choke and then into the voltage, DC voltage amp. So you connect here, and I see a little distorted wave there. So that is probably going to be the amplitude of the comparator crystal because it has more power. And really you'd want to have these equal, but. So now if I turn this slightly, it should react. And as this approaches the frequency of the comparator, that's going to matter. So sure enough, it should actually try and phase lock now too, I would think. Yeah, it does a definite bang there, doesn't it? And you would think that this frequency would lock so that when I tweak this thing, it wouldn't be able to change a whole lot. You can see it's not locked. So I don't really know if the DC amplifier is working right yet or not. It should lock. Well, that seems kind of locked. Because I'm moving this thing around and it's... Yeah, look at that. Maybe it is locked now. Yeah, I think it's locked. Son of a bee. Because I'm hitting this around. And we're not moving in frequency, so I think it locked up finally. Okay, if that's the case then... Yeah, look at that. So I'm moving the synthesizer. See that? And the baby is not moving the frequency, so I think the sucker locked. Whoa, I think it locked. So then that means, yeah, I think we're locked. Son of a gun, look at that. So I can really crank this around and look at that. I think, whoop, now it unlocked. Yeah, I think it's phase locking. So I think this means my crystal is a bit off. I probably want to change that down a bit. Let's see if we can do that. So, hey, you're learning things, right? And I'm learning things. That's what's important, how to fix this radio. This thing's a real bear. This is the trimmer for the reference crystal. So I'm thinking that if I trim this down to 4.75000, that's better. Turning it. Yeah, look at it going down. Okay, so there, it should now stay locked right about there. So if I move the synthesizer around, it shouldn't wobble a bit. It doesn't. So this baby's locked. So I think the rig's fixed. Yeah, it's not, it's locked. So now, look at that thing. That's glorious. I've worked days trying to figure this thing out. And it locks. Okay, so will it lock? Anyway, hell with it. Let's put the sync transistor back in. So the one that sweeps it. So if I can find it. So I have a light in the bottom, but since we're not scanning, the light's off. So this light is on the bottom now, and it won't. That light will stay off. Let's turn off the power on the radio. And if I could find that little transistor, this thing might finally be fixed. We'll put that in and see how it happens. The trouble is, hours of stressing out on this thing and little parts bouncing around the house here, the desk. There's one little transistor that I need to put back in there, which has a red 11 written on it, because that's number 11 in there, right there, 311. If I could find that, we could check the radio. Anyway, this is exciting for me. I don't know about you, but... Okay, obviously I've lost it. Hopefully it didn't get smashed. Is it under here? So knowing me, I put it somewhere for safekeeping. I've put it far away from falling off the table. Under these resistors maybe. There it is right there, look at that. So I marked this with a 1-1, and that we're going to put back in here. This is the 311, and so the way you put these in is you can see that the bass is in the middle, and so you kind of go with the bass and you match it up. That's how you do it. And these are painful to get back in here. Any rate. Can I get it back in with one hand here? There, it's in, I think. Yep. Okay, that is the sleeper. That's in. It'll sweep it. Now, if all goes well, it should simply lock. It's on. I don't see it locking. It's still sweeping. So there may be trouble with turning off. Oh, it's got a signal there. Let's see what the lock light says. The lock light down here says it's unlocked. Oh, it's pulsing though. Wonder if I turn it a bit, will it lock? Nope. So I think it does lock, but, oh, it locked. Son of a bitch. It just locked. You're witnessing history. This is the first time this damn thing's ever worked for me. See that light going out? It locked, yeah, it's locking. What are we locking on here? 11. Son of a gun. And there we are, so our frequency, it's locked. So wherever you go here, it should eventually lock back onto that frequency. So it's working finally. The radio's working. There's 10. It should lock. Looking for a lock here. Just watch the light. Actually, there's a light on the bottom. I guess I can turn the radio off and tilt it for you so you can see the light on the bottom I put on. Because you can't see the lock light from here. And of course, these wires are all screwed up. Okay, ground wire with pops off. Find some place else to ground it. Power wire, ground it there. Power on, radio's off because more wires popped off. How about the power wire in the back? That goes here. All right, we got power. Power the radio on. There's the light I have down there for lock and unlock because this light is burned out and I can't get to it yet. So the objective is to get this light to go off. That's the lock light. So we're unlocked. So you turn the synthesizer until that goes off. And let's see if it'll go off again or go off at all. Not going off. Yep, there it is, it's off. So it's locked there, which is where? It's not even on the band. Let's go the other way. So yeah, you want to tune this thing so it's accurate. So that's 11. Can we lock on 12 here? There's 12. Okay, so if it's not accurate, you want to tweak this, you want to tweak the HFO a bit. So from hacking this thing for days, I know this by heart. HFO for this band is right there. So let's change it a bit because we set this thing with the sweeper turned off. So let's tweak it a bit, see what happens to it. There we go. So does it give us more favorite now for locking? So there's 12. Let's unlock it. Let's get it to lock somewhere. Let's lock in there, lock there. Where? At 12. Okay, now it's locking at 12 and a half. So what if we tweak this thing in a bit? So now it would be good to find WWV and see where this thing's at, if the receiver still works after days of hacking it. Okay. There's 12. So we're locking. Anyway, I'm going to find WWV now and see if it'll go. But hey, this thing is finally locking, which I've never seen it do that. So I'm pretty happy with it. There, it locked there. And right there, it's locked. All right, well, she's locking. Now it's a matter of, can it actually work? Can it receive anything? But before I can never lock it, so praise God and hallelujah. I guess I was given the motivation to stick with it. Last night I was pretty frustrated with this radio. So now we got to find out what frequency we're on. Okay, that's my little demo. Again, to recap, you have to make sure that the levels of the HF oscillator and the spectrum generator harmonic are correct. And once you get this thing lined up, as in the last video, once you get lined up here, and now I'm locked, so it's not going to change, but once you get lined up, with the scanning sweeping transistor 311 pulled out. You want to unloosen this little nut here and just move that thing back and forth to get the best waveform. And that'll sync this generator. What would this be called? The generator tuning, which is actually selecting the best harmonic to match the HF oscillator. So this thing's doable. It just takes a lot of understanding of how it works. It's not complicated once you understand it, but it seems complicated. And also remember that you have to get this frequency, this crystal, correct to get the harmonics to generate perfectly on the 500 kc intervals. Sometimes it'll put trash out if the crystal's not synced up right, not on the right frequency. So I have no idea how this thing works. It's like a miracle how this thing goes. And the little wires in here are so delicate. It's like micro wires in this thing. It's a work of art. I thought I would never get this thing to work, to lock. I thought I would never do it. It's been days. Remaining work is the band switch. I gotta pull out this fiber and put in aluminum. If the thing I bought on eBay is aluminum from a Drake TR5, I'll simply put that in here and get rid of this, because this thing is really bad. But maybe this radio will work. At least this band I think will work. The others I can't make work at all, but I think this band, at least now I can lock the synthesizer. That's what is the holy grail with this radio, is getting it to lock at all. So that's it, man. Thanks for watching. 30-minute video. Hope it taught you something. It sure taught me something. And I'm keeping this now as a memorizer of how to fix this damn thing in the future when it doesn't work. All right, fix your HRO 500. Have a great day.